Very good. All right, we should be live.
What do you think, YouTube? Do you think we're live?
I can see.
Oh,
I can see it's getting
we're
our
live.
feed. Very good.
All right.
Welcome to StruggleOps. Let's do that again. Welcome to StruggleOps.
Welcome to StruggleOps, where we fail so you can too. We're testing that one out. We'll see how it goes. All right. So today's Wireguard is kind of it's a follow-up on last week's stream, a bit more of a deep dive into I don't know, I'd like to say our personal preferences for VPNs. It actually speaks to a lot of the pains that we had with OpenVPN, and that we discussed that in the last episode. And it's quite interesting. Many pains. The configuration pains of OpenVPN. Something I was reminded about doing my research on Wireguard was the ability for OpenVPN to actually send settings to the peers that are connecting to it. And then you're dealing with the conflicting configuration of, like, is the server propagating those changes onto my client, or is the client setting those changes? And then you have this this conflicting source of truth. That has wasted a lot of time personally for me debugging those issues.
Yeah, some of those features are useful for enterprises who want to have centralized control. However, it doesn't, but for home use, for home lab use, it doesn't make that much sense. And even for corporate use, it's like many of the things that are useful for corporations that they think are, I will say it like this, many things that are useful for big enterprises are actually not really useful to even them, because they increase their support costs quite a lot. And they also restrict the kind of, sometimes that's seen as a good thing, but they restrict the kind of devices that can participate with the VPN. So,
definitely. Yeah. And they probably don't take that into consideration very much as they go and decide on, like, okay, we're going to use OpenVPN because we get to propagate these settings. And then they're like, what about all the support costs around it, and then the device limitations? And so that's why we're going to be talking about Wireguard. And maybe I'll just jump right into it by sharing the Wireguard homepage, and we can talk about it a little bit from there. I really love the way that they start off, is that Wireguard is extremely simple yet fast and modern, and it really is apt. Like, I've never experienced a VPN software that is as simple yet effective as Wireguard. And I feel like that was like their whole intention. They have I don't know why I'm surprised, but there's a white paper, and I should have, like, it's the technology industry, and typically anybody that's going to develop a new VPN is going to do it in the classic format of you have your white paper, you get it peer reviewed, you garner feedback from the community, and then you start really, I don't know, now that you have that, you can actually try to drive adoption of that product.
And absolutely, for something that has a lot of security implications, and you have to, you know, if you're going to get any traction with your product, it's going to have to be trusted. And what better way than having, you know, a white paper that actually details in a way that even, you know, cryptographers can dissect and understand and prove or disprove your assertions through. So really was very wise.
Definitely. And on that topic of security, I really liked in the abstract here, they point out that Wireguard can be implemented into Linux in under 4,000 lines of code, which isn't exactly nothing, but relative to other implementations of VPNs into Linux, that is remarkably easy to audit and verify in 4,000 lines. Like, you know, I know organizations that have more bash scripts than that available just to transition between, like, a competitor to their product. They maintain 10,000 lines of bash just to do that. So that is really a testament to their efforts.
And I haven't done a count on it would be maybe an interesting exercise, but I haven't done a count of the, you know, the lines of code in OpenVPN. But I think it's probably, it compares very well. Reflects
Yeah,
very well on WireGuard.
it has to, right? Like I don't know if I can find like can I find the OpenVPN Git repo, and do you think it'll tell us how many lines of code are in here?
It might. I don't know. Does GitHub offer that? I've actually never looked for that.
Maybe in Insights, does it? I don't think it's going to tell me how many lines of code are in here, but I'm guaranteed. Well, this is actually maybe not a fair comparison, because they're saying lines of code to implement into Linux versus the actual maintaining of the binary and all that.
Yeah. So this is also an interesting point, that OpenVPN is not in the kernel. It's in the user space. So we do have to be fair about how we compare and contrast between OpenVPN and WireGuard. Absolutely, there are issues, there's issues that are overcome in terms of the simplicity of the configuration, but just the fact that it's in the kernel means that there's a wide range of performance issues that just disappear for WireGuard. It doesn't have to worry about transitioning between the user space and the kernel space. It doesn't have to worry about like memory access, which is slower when you go from user space to kernel space, because the kernel is exactly what arbitrates between programs and requests for memory. That's part of its major reason for existence. So that's going to give WireGuard a big advantage. And that's also, this is really good that you brought this up, Nicholas, because the white paper, because to be accepted into the Linux kernel, there's a pretty high bar, a really high bar for details. And you're going to go through a gauntlet. Your code is going to go through a gauntlet of evaluations and reviews through the whole kernel community, potentially, the kernel developer community. And they're going to say yes or no. And eventually Linus Torvalds is going to say yes or no. Right. And so he's usually seen as a pretty, a stickler, let's say that, like a stickler for good coding practices relative to the kernel coding practices. So it would not, the kernel doesn't typically accept just random drivers off the, off the internet. So this was a wonderful way to do that. And again, it also makes sure that there's, this is why it's native on Android. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I'll put an asterisk on that. Can be native on Android because Android runs on the Linux kernel, but there's a big asterisk, which we'll talk about a little bit later when we talk about clients.
Yeah. So we'll go a little bit more into the background here. So Edge Security is actually the organization that the original authors of WireGuard are from. So it's interesting that it's actually so like WireGuard was created by Edge Security to replace IPsec and OpenVPN, and their claim to fame is that they are expert hackers. So security was at the forefront of their intention, but then they also focused on simplicity of implementation, which tells me they've probably fought with many OpenVPN setups, or they have informed, this is obviously speculation, informed many organizations of insecure OpenVPN setups during their security assessments, because something tells me it's very easy, or I know from experience that because of the complexity of the configuration, it's actually pretty easy to miss something or to accidentally allow more traffic than you intended into your network. So I found that was interesting that it came from them.
Very nice. Very nice.
So with that said, my personal implementation of WireGuard is on my Netgate pfSense appliance. So this is a little messy, is that like pfSense in the community edition, you have to go and install WireGuard as a separate plugin. On the Netgate appliances, they provide it to you. as a by default with the pfSense Plus. I know there's a bit of history there. I think you're a little bit more familiar with like what went on there.
So I honestly, I haven't gone back to review exactly what was happening there. So I want to be careful about what I say.
That's
However, it's the, what there was some contention because of a initial developer was hired to add WireGuard to basically by Netgate to add it to the BSD kernel. And apparently the quality was very low, but it was accepted anyways into the BSD kernel with low quality. And that upset a lot of people and made WireGuard look pretty bad as a product because of the poor implementation. But I think later that was repaired. And they actually had a different developer, different set of developers who worked on it to add it to FreeBSD, which then is going to be supported within pfSense.
Okay.
But
Wikipedia actually has the history for that. It was so substantial that it's actually in the wiki article.
So there you go. WireGuard was added, preview edition,
and
then it was removed from FreeBSD.
And an urgent code cleanup.
Yeah, bad news. Yeah, bad news.
But I see what you say, that it was reintroduced into it by a member of the community, and it works on top of what was provided by the original pfSense hired developer to do the implementation. So interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so like the WireGuard, what is it? The WireGuard package for pfSense incorporates the original kernel mode WireGuard development work by Jason Donenfeld. And Jason, that's the WireGuard developer. Like that's the original. Jason is the original WireGuard developer.
Right.
So I don't think that was who was originally doing WireGuard.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was some history there. It was maybe tangentially interesting from the perspective of WireGuard itself, because it was more about interesting practices within the FreeBSD community.
Yeah.
How did and quality control discussions that came out of that. It's not a reflection on the quality of WireGuard itself, the protocol, the where we are today in both BSD as well as Linux. So, but it did have an interesting history, and there probably were some people who got burned by it and made decisions about what their next OSs were going to be for their routers. But yeah.
So we covered a couple of the other ways that WireGuard behaves, unlike traditional VPNs, and the fact that it operates completely in the kernel. A really interesting one is that there's no facilities for user authentication. It's pure public key authentication, which I remember struggling personally with the user configuration for OpenVPN, is that you can do both the TLS configuration, but then you can also do like integrating it into AD or into LDAP to do all of that. And it just added a whole other layer of complexity on top of it that, I don't know, at least for the Homelab, I ended up just kind of shooting myself in the foot there trying to implement it, rather than, setting it up on my phone this time with WireGuard was reasonably straightforward. I'm just copying over a configuration. You can even like scan a QR code to just pull that configuration onto your device, and then you're off to the races. There's no more authentication required.
Yes, from a user perspective, the QR code scanning, it's like thumbs up, like super easy. But most of us are going to be, well, I don't know about most of us. Many of us will be using our smartphones to VPN, and they have a camera and you can easily scan it. Now laptops and stuff like that, it may be a little harder to do that, but it's still not that hard to configure WireGuard. The fact that it doesn't have so like putting on different hats, like if the Homelab hat versus the enterprise admin hat, all the things that you listed are also reasons to not choose WireGuard if you're an enterprise admin, or you want some kind of you have needs that have that are more around centralized control. Now, well, I don't want to interrupt your flow, but yeah, like those are, it's interesting to keep that in mind, is that we have these two competing use cases for many things, and this goes to show too that it's really great that it's in the kernel, but the kernel has a lot of stuff that's useful for enterprises, but it also has a lot of stuff that's useful for individuals and for small groups that are not necessarily companies. So it's a really good example for that too, of there still is something of the community spirit. It's not just all like corporate developers working just for corporate interests. So that's
nice. A good point. Yeah. Another interesting idea for WireGuard here is that the public key used by a peer, so we've got no facilities for user authentication, so we rely on this public key that is uniquely identifying the peer, which allows the external source IP of the peer connecting to the WireGuard. Let's say connecting from my smartphone to my pfSense, it's actually really easy for my phone to roam freely between different external IPs, going between different 5G networks or going across different cell towers, because it only relies on the public key. So as that changes, WireGuard can stay up to date and easily switch between when there's a new handshake between the WireGuard on my pfSense side and on my mobile side. If the external IP changes, it doesn't necessarily care as long as I'm still providing the same authentication, same public key.
And like as you said, cell phone networks, but also you're hopping, you're in one Starbucks and then you're on the Wi-Fi there, and you want to move to another cafe, or you go into or you go into your office and it has Wi-Fi access. WireGuard will just keep smoothly working throughout all of that. You'll have, minimal interruption. I can't say you'll never have any interruption, but of course, you won't have to I need to go in and re-enable my VPN because I changed networks. Like, it doesn't care. Yeah.
It doesn't care. Yeah, you don't have to disable it and re-enable it to you don't have to restart the connection. It actually can do that proactively, just as a part of that mechanism. Okay, so let's see. Is there anything else that I missed about this that is unique? It doesn't bind to a specific interface or address on the firewall. That's pretty interesting. It's it runs as seemingly it's no concept of connections or sessions.
Yeah.
Do you have much insights into that?
Yes, it is explicitly. I think it's mentioned in the white paper too, is that it's UDP only. They will not use TCP. So UDP is a connectionless protocol. It's usually, you make fun of it. People make fun of it because it's like you send packets with just hope, and you don't know if it's going to make it to the other end, because you're not creating a handshake. You're not saying now what happens is other layers above the UDP layer, they can handle sessions or handshakes or a continuous what's it called, virtual circuit. You can have other protocols above that are piggybacking on UDP. They can handle whether there's some state to be stored. However, WireGuard does not care about that. WireGuard is just like, I'm going to send the packets out, and if somebody's on the other side, that's great. If somebody's not there, okay, it will report that there's eventually a problem. Like, your client will eventually report there's a problem. But it just, again, this simplicity has extreme that WireGuard is focused on has very positive effects on performance. Very positive effects, and also not just performance in terms of CPU, but also memory usage. It doesn't have to worry about remembering, okay, these are session connections. Like, if you had a multiple WireGuards configured, it wouldn't care. Like, it wouldn't care. But if you have, like, for OpenVPN and other things where you can have, sorry, I should mention one other thing. By doing this there was another reason to do this, is that the performance of networking. So if you tunnel TCP over TCP, you have serious degradation of service problems. You have serious degradation of service because TCP tries to be smart and read the quality of the connection. But if TCP is going inside TCP, it is like basically like one layer of TCP is blinded from what the other layer is doing. And you get into contentions where it's like it's making guesses that are based on the guesses of the other TCP that are not communicated between the two stacks, basically the two stacks. And you can have you can have a cascading effect where it's eventually your connection just gets super slow and latency goes through the roof. And that's a common problem with tunneling, so if you're TCP tunneling. So they were like, nope, we're not going to deal with that. WireGuard is not going to deal with that. UDP only, you can put TCP traffic over it, but you can put any protocol over it, but we're not going to tunnel. We're not going to do tunneling inside a tunnel with a stateful protocol. We're not going to do it.
That's really interesting.
Really great choice.
It's been a long time since I've thought about the TCP in TCP problem. Like I used to think about that a lot more when I was working in VoIP actively, where you would have over the VPN you'd be sending VoIP traffic, and then that would be TCP to initialize the connection, and then UTP to send the RTP stream, the voice stream over after it's established the connection. And that gave me so many headaches on various levels trying to diagnose that. But anyways, so let's take a look at what this kind of looks like in my own network. So my basic use case here, my long-term use case is that I have a backup storage array at my parents' home that I want my home lab to be able to back up to nightly. So ultimately, I want to have a device on my parents' home network that connects back to my home network and allows me to do that backup. But as a basic demonstration, I've started off with just, okay, can my smartphone connect into my home lab network? And this is useful for when I'm on the go or if I'm traveling, if I need to get in and somebody's telling me one of my home lab services is broken and that they can't do something that they normally rely on. Okay, I can provide some remote.
When does that happen?
Hopefully never, but if I do my job wrong, sometimes.
You still have a job after that? What?
Yeah, if they don't pay me, I'm allowed to make mistakes, apparently.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've got my smartphone, and that's connected to my my Bell mobile network. So Bell is a Canadian mobile provider, but also a Canadian home internet provider and business provider. So my cell phone's on my 5G network, and then my home has a fiber line running into it. That fiber line leads into a Bell Home Hub 4000, which I essentially just use as a bridge. So if I plug my pfSense router into a specific port on the Home Hub, it no longer it doesn't treat it like a traditional device. It allows me to actually establish and maybe that I should have that in here, a PPPoE connection. So I can send a PPPoE request out, and if I'm connected to the correct port, the Home Hub will transparently pass that out to the service provider, and I will get a separate public IPv4 address for my home router that's not related to the Home Hub at all. So it's essentially its own independent router, but using that as a bridge. So that's why I have my pfSense Netgate appliance here doing all of the WireGuard hosting. So this is where WireGuard is configured. So I need my smartphone to be able to get all the way down into here so that it can get into the rest of my network. It can go through my Ubiquity switch into my Proxmox server, for example. So really all of the magic is obviously happening in pfSense here. If we look over here, so what this took, it's fairly simple. On the pfSense side, the configuration is pretty easy. Like, I don't think there's anything really that challenging here. The tunnel.
Boring. It's really
so
boring.
boring. There's only like 5 knobs that you can turn. Like, I've got my tunnel configuration. I can't even scroll. The page is so simple. I've got my peer configuration, which again, there's a little bit here. I've got my public key. I've got some allowed IPs. I've got a pre-shared key, which is essentially kind of like a password, I guess. Like, this is an optional thing to do, is to have a pre-shared key, and I just did it for my own sanity. Yeah, I don't know if this is just good practice to have this, or if it's actually like how it's basically a password, right? At that point.
Yeah, it's a pre-shared secret, pre-shared key. So it just means it's a passphrase. You know, hopefully you can use some sort of password generator that just makes it a series of random alphanumeric characters.
Yeah.
And the longer you make it, the harder it is to crack. You would need, it would be nice to be able to rotate that every once in a while. But it's not, in theory, like it goes, the WireGuard homepage and the white paper goes a bit into, who is the threat actor that WireGuard is modeled to protect against. And, it basically talks about, hey, when quantum computing happens, and we're starting, and because quantum computing will be able to easily basically crack all our current digital computer cryptography, WireGuard will not be ready for that. However, what they recommend you'll do is like, okay, you're going to generate some of the certificates are going to be generated by a quantum computer, and you could use those certificates in WireGuard, and that will be hard to hack by a quantum computer. That's my understanding of it. Like, so it's like, okay, it's kind of like the author is saying, like, okay, wise guy, when we finally get to the point where quantum computers are ubiquitous, they're everywhere, or they're very common, or
there's not just 4 of them.
There's not 4 of them, and you actually need to worry about it as a ordinary citizen. Then yes, there's some things you'll be able to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, that is such a, I mean, it's not like it's not going to happen. It is going to happen, most likely.
But
it's
I
like,
bet they'll be
it's like
targeting
everything
my home first.
Yeah, exactly. Like, are they coming after me, like, directly? Like, I mean, there's all kinds of other, there's many XKCDs about, using a wrench instead of using, like, your smarts, and like how you're actually gonna, encrypt things, and like, have a password that's on a YubiKey, blah, 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 like, or, use one-time passwords, blah, blah, blah. Someone's just going to use a wrench on you and get all the information out of you, because that's what the state, if it's the state that's after you, right? Because the state has a monopoly on violence. So that's their that's their method for getting that information. They're not gonna be scratching their heads like, boy, we're there you go. Like, yeah, like, we're not gonna worry about they're gonna have to hack the password themselves. Like, no. They're going to make sure to ask you in a way you can't refuse.
Yeah, they're either going to social engineer it, or they're going to, I don't know, wrench engineer it. But
right.
Yeah.
So the threat model matters. So the threat model is like, hey, passive. If someone's, so WireGuard is really good for something like, hey, you're sitting in a cafe, you're using an access point that is not your own. You have, you don't even know if you're really because Wi-Fi, the standard itself, is not well made, because it's hard to secure radio. It's hard to secure radio. So you don't really know if you have a man in the middle when you're authenticating to your cafe Wi-Fi, unless the cafe happens to have a cryptographic engineer working for it who actually configures the network stuff there, which I highly doubt.
Sometimes it's pushed out from corporate and they get it right, but something tells me that feedback loop is broken, and if something's misconfigured, they're not going to know about it. And
even then, all it takes is some sophisticated oftentimes a sophisticated teenager with a laptop and
Wi-Fi pineapple.
Metasploit, or Metasploit, or what's the Linux distribution that's oriented for Kali? Yeah, they have Kali on their laptop, and they're doing a man in the middle on you. Even if they do that, WireGuard will protect you.
Exactly.
If you go through there, if WireGuard is still connected, and you're going through literally a hacker's laptop, you are okay. Like, that's really good. So, that's
very good.
That speaks to the simplicity of WireGuard too. So,
yes. So, speaking of the simplicity, this is an example of the status page where you can see that the tunnel is up, and currently my phone is not connected. So we showed the tunnel and peers. There's only a couple other settings that are relevant left, and it's basically all on the network side. So it's all about actually allowing that connection into my network, which for me, I have I have an interface set up. I've got my WAN address, and I'm doing NAT from my WAN address on the WireGuard ports 5182 or 80820, and then that translates it down into the interface on my pfSense installation that I've assigned to that WireGuard tunnel. So I gave it a 172.16.01 address. And then from there, on pfSense, there is a firewall group for all WireGuard tunnels. And then there's a per interface firewall. So for me, I've set no firewall rules on my WireGuard group. And that basically all WireGuard interfaces go through that group of firewall rules first, and then they match the firewall rules that are on the individual interfaces. And this is actually part of what tripped me up while I was configuring my WireGuard installation. The other thing that tripped me up is that I totally, it's been so long since I've worked with firewalls that I didn't really remember the kind of the concept of a stateful firewall, and how the traffic only needs to be permitted on the interface where it's entering the firewall. So in my case, I have, and I don't know, how is it bad practice to show my firewall rules? Is that kind of like, I feel like if they're there, it's kind of like, I don't know, you could show somebody a misconfiguration, and that would be the dangerous part.
So there's security by obscurity. That is a concept. It's not, most of the time it's looked down on, because security by obscurity isn't really, in many cases, it's not really security, because the only person who doesn't know what things are being obscured from is the actual user.
Right.
And it's like, well, all it takes is someone to figure out how to get rid of the obscurity, and then there's whatever you're protecting. However, in a modern deployment, there's so many variables. It's actually, in some ways, it's better to make your stuff public and have someone shout out at you, like, who's, the thing about a lot of crackers and hackers is that they don't like to, they want credit.
Yeah, right.
Right. They want fame. So you might have somebody who shouts at you in a comment or something and says, like, oh, you're about to get hacked if you do this, if you have this stuff and whatever. They may be wrong as well. They may not see the full picture, but also, they are helping you. They can help you because they can see it. I think as long as you keep your, this is internal to your network. As long as you're following the general instructions of pfSense and Netgate, they've done a lot of work to make sure that their documentation and their interface doesn't automatically open everything to the world.
Yes, yeah.
So
pretty good at that.
I think it's you know,
I'm gonna click the
security
button.
is security
share
is
it.
not a like exactly like security is not a state, it's a process, right? Security.
Yes.
So you're never in a state of security. In fact, what you could say is you're in a state of permanent insecurity because you're just there's a constant work that needs to be done, even
you're
if you're
ever
not
approaching.
you're even if you're offering no new services on your network. Software evolves, bugs are discovered, blah blah blah. Like it's never static. So it's always a process. You're closer, you're farther, you're closer, you're farther to your ideal state. And it also depends on you too. Like the environment changes. Who's a threat actor yesterday may not be a threat actor towards you today. The threat model may change, blah blah blah. Like there's a whole bunch of things. So long answer to a short question or short observation is I don't think you need to worry.
Done. I'm sharing it. It's live. It's real. It's okay. So stateful firewall. So what's interesting here is that these are the firewall rules that after it's passed my WAN firewall rule, obviously, to get into the WireGuard service or WireGuard interface. These are the only rules that actually that matter, unless I have an explicit deny, is that I have my source and I'm allowing my WireGuard connections to reach any other destination, which means that I originally thought I was going to have an allow rule on the LAN side to be able to reach the LAN devices, but it appears that that's not actually the case because it's a stateful firewall. The rules only apply on the interface that you're coming into, which is like I don't know. This I was expecting to have a rule on the LAN side and on the WireGuard side, but it appears that this is actually where I would control that. I would say you're only allowed to specific destinations when establishing that state on that interface. Right?
That's interesting. That's
interesting because, like, if you look at it right now, I don't have any rules on my LAN network that would say that a WireGuard device could reach a LAN device. Like this one only applies to the router. These only allow things from the LAN subnets. This is the lab subnet. So in theory, if this wasn't a stateful firewall, I wouldn't be able to reach a device on my LAN. But let's see if I can test this in real time. I should, being the most important part here, be able to reach my I have to put in HTTPS because I don't have a redirect built into that. I should maybe I have to turn off. These are the live demos parts that always scare me with just basically.
It's exciting. It's exciting.
It's exciting. It's see, now I'm starting to feel like I'm wrong, and it might have been actually because it was maintaining the state. And these are one of the things that, like, because you can change a firewall rule, but if it's already maintaining the state for that connection, it doesn't immediately affect those existing states when you change the firewall rule, because like those are already established. So you have to actually kill the states to test if the firewall rule works. Right?
That's interesting.
A lot of.
So go ahead.
Right?
Sorry.
No, just like I agree with you. It's this feels unintuitive. But I would like to know your thoughts.
Well, I'm going to say, like, I never said, so this is, this could be like two blind men describing an elephant, because I did configure WireGuard on pfSense, but I have configured it on OpenSense, which is a sort of a fork of pfSense that has continued on for a while since the fork occurred. And they have a lot of stuff in OpenSense that apparently is automatic for WireGuard, including the firewall rules.
Right.
So it kind of just makes all the firewall rules for you. And I think they are floating rules. So I think, hold on a second, let me see. Is there a floating rule? Because I'm in my firewall right now, but yeah, no, I think it makes a new group of rules for WireGuard itself. And you don't really have to do anything.
Wow.
At least I think so. Yeah, let out anything from the firewall. Okay, so it's not. But hold on, let me check one. Is the LAN default LAN group rules? Oh, that's my DNS redirect. Yeah, I don't think so. But you know what? While you're demonstrating that stuff, let me actually quickly look up the OpenSense WireGuard stuff. I should have done that before.
And I think I'm realizing that what broke in my live demo is actually that my Proxmox install might not actually be accessible right now. Just in general, it might.
Oh, in general. Oh,
it might be broken for an unrelated reason.
my condolences for your loss, Proxmox. May you rise again.
It's like it's on back there, right? It's not too hot. It seems healthy. It's the lights are blinking. All right, this might be my night might have just changed into Proxmox troubleshooting. So that's
okay.
These are the failures we talk about.
This is StruggleOps. This is StruggleOps right now. This is StruggleOps.
Definitely.
So I'm looking through just to close up about the OpenSense. So, okay, you do need to create an outbound NAT rule. Okay, you do need to do that, and you have to create a firewall rule on the WAN interface. And what does that do? It just makes sure. Oh, that allows access to clients to WireGuard. And normalization rules. Oh, that's weird. Yeah, there's this. I remember looking at pfSense and its rules, and I don't think pfSense mentioned this. This is some networking magic that I never got the potion for. Is like it has MSS clamping for IPv4, and it's something special for PPPoE. So if you have something happening there, it's because the packet size is different in PPPoE than Ethernet. It's like 8 bytes. It's 8 bytes different.
Oh, right.
So there's something that has to happen. You have to tell WireGuard about it. So it does its what's it called? It's MTU. That's the message transfer unit. That has to be different.
Right.
So yeah. So let me see. So, but as far as the firewall rules I see that I had to create manually, there's like basically 2. And the rest it does automatically behind the scenes when I create an instance of WireGuard. So yeah, that so OpenSense. I don't know. To be fair, we are not doing a comparison between OpenSense and pfSense at this point because we're not actually comparing them. We're just like saying like, hey, over here I did it and it was easier. I don't know if that's because maybe the implementation is actually different. Maybe you have extras that I haven't turned on in WireGuard. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe
maybe.
But I do remember that pfSense in general, though, they want you to have control. So they give you a lot of options and they try not to always bake in opinions. OpenSense is a little more opinionated. So that means it's doing more without you asking, for it in order to help you. And usually their choices are pretty good, but all this, what I'm basically giving you, Nicholas, is I'm giving you, hey, it works for me, and that's it. It's not really a helpful, fruitful conversation in that way. But yeah, so I don't see anything wrong with what you did, or what you're doing. But I think now that you know it's Proxmox, maybe that was. Is there something else that you could try to access inside your network?
Honestly, I think there's like maybe one more thing I can try to access. Let's see. I'll try to access my QNAP instance. See if that's alive. Let's see. 192.168. And then we're just about at time here, so we'll try to. I'll try to establish this connection, and then maybe we'll have a brief discussion on your search for an Android client. And
yeah, sure.
So let's see. Okay, I can get to my QNAP instance, so I feel vindicated. Actually,
yep. Nice job.
Maybe right. Awesome. I think maybe I may have fudged this test a little bit because I re-enabled the rule here, but you can see the rule has had exactly 0 evaluations, so it's never gotten touched. But what the rule that is allowing this into the LAN network is this one, which if we click on the states, we can actively see. I wonder if I can actually filter this down into the state to my QNAP instance. You can see I only have the one firewall rule on the WireGuard interface that's allowing from there to any destination, even though that destination's on a different interface. So it's the rules are evaluated on the interface that you're coming into, because pfSense is a stateful firewall, this is quoted from their docs. So it's only permitted on the interface where it enters the firewall. Interesting distinction that I didn't know prior to my setup of WireGuard. I hadn't really thought about it in a while.
That's an interesting. It's an interesting choice of words. I'm not sure. Like, I know being a stateful firewall means that it keeps track of connections and makes sure that it reuses connections and has keep alives and stuff like that. But I'm not sure if that's exactly why you need to do that.
Yeah.
I feel like there's something missing in that brief summary. But hey, it may not be true. I haven't analyzed their docs that deeply.
Yeah.
And usually I will say, like, pfSense is very, their documentation is usually very sharp. So
yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite parts of using it, is that usually if I've had a problem, somebody's already had that problem and I can go read into it. It's the ubiquity of it. Okay, so you were hunting for an Android client for WireGuard, despite WireGuard being built into the operating system into Android, correct?
I was looking into. Oh, I gotta mute that. Okay, I was looking into WireGuard clients, and let's see. Can I actually just go to? So I'm just going to show you guys the WireGuard client. I know I probably shouldn't be showing my phone.
Yeah, but, this is dangerous territory.
Let's see, WG Tunnel. So this is the client that I chose. And sorry for the way can I fix that? Like, let me see if I can fix that real quick.
Yeah, did it line us up there? Oh, interesting. It's just a little tiny. I
can just barely.
Just throw it away. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, let's throw it away for a second. Okay, so that unfortunately I don't think I can zoom on this, but at the top it has a VPN. So that's my domain, boldandbusted.com. It also has my IP address. So hey, great. Now everybody knows my WireGuard IP address. And luckily my ISP, I have 5 IPs that they allocated me, so I can have one that's just dedicated for.
Do you have like a small business line?
I do. I'm no longer dealing with commercial with residential service. This is a little bit of a tangent, but in my experience, when you call the support line for the business license, you get someone who's more has more awareness.
You get right to the tier 2.
Yeah, you get right to the tier 2. And I need it for work, but also because I also I don't have cable or I don't have cable television or anything like that. Basically, the internet is my television, so I'm counting that into the cost. So
not bad.
I get five IPs with that. So One is for Tor, so I'm happy with to talk about that as a Tor relay. So no lawyers, please. No FBI. It's just a relay. I have no idea what's happening.
Yeah,
and
you are just a peer along the network. It's
yes.
no obligation.
I only see encrypted blobs. That's it.
Yeah.
So and then I also have I have had some web services on it, and I have WireGuard, and I think I have 2 spares now. So anyways, on this, I have my IP, and I'm actually right now I'm connected to WireGuard. And the way that I can show that, well, actually, okay, so you see at the top here, I'll let me do the real thing. So if I go here and I'm, okay, I should have, okay, now I'm on Wi-Fi, which is inside my network. Oh, it's gonna make Video Ninja a little unhappy. Is that?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you'll drop as the connection.
Let's see if I can I restore that? Big money, no whammies. Okay. Okay, so I'm back and I have to mute myself again. So now if I go to Firefox and I go to, what's my IP? This is going to show my that's going to show my home address. That's my home address, my home IP address. Now I'm going to disconnect Wi-Fi. I'm going to drop again on Video Ninja, so I'm going to have to reconnect.
Wow, I'm surprised you don't use one of the like ifconfigs.io or one of the more niche websites for that.
I should. Okay, let's see. Is that actually me?
That's current you.
Okay, that's me. Okay, and so now going back, I'm gonna refresh. I should have a cell phone network IP now.
There you go. Yeah, IPv6.
IPv6. Oh, wow, how'd they do that? Okay, I've actually turned off IPv6 at my home lab because I'm just, why bother? Why do I need that? I know we need it because we're running out of IPv4 addresses, but I don't need it.
Yeah, not internally.
Okay, so clearly what we're showing here is that I'm on a different network, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now I'm going to go and turn on my WireGuard. Turn that back on. That's all I do. We'll see if we drop again. Now, live demo gods. Let's see if this happens. So now I'm going to refresh, and we should see my home IP address again. And there we go. So I'm on the cell phone network. So I'm not. You can look at the top. I'm not on Wi-Fi. Yeah. I'm on this. I'm on the cell phone network, but WireGuard is making my my cell phone appear on my homeland.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So it's perfect. Now this client though.
What's special about this client?
So there's a lot of things. So I will. So I've not played with Amnesia. I'm not exactly sure what that is. But if I want to create a new WireGuard, well, let's go to the settings. Let's go to the settings. So here, it has this one has features for auto tunneling. So you can tunnel on untrusted. You could select like, okay, what environments do you want to be automatically using WireGuard? So you can just leave it on all the time.
That's like the features provided by like a consumer VPN, like Shark VPN or Surf VPN. Like that's like one of the main selling points is that it's like every time I'm on an unsecured network or I'm not on my home network, automatically turn on my VPN.
Yes. Yeah. So it has a lot of smarter features that I'm not using because I'm not smart. I don't know. I prefer dumb features, but honestly, I have not really started using WireGuard in my everyday life. I just have it ready in case I need it. Yeah. On I should say it like this, on an as needed basis. Like I'm in a cafe, I'm traveling, whatever. So the other stuff that you can set are kind of just conveniences, like enable app shortcuts, restart on boot. I think that should be That's interesting. I don't know why you'd have to set that. App lock, I think, means that it would actually, you can't uninstall it. So you'd have to come back, disable this, and then you can uninstall WG Tunnel.
I see.
Yeah. So the other thing, let's see the supports. So we can read the docs. This is not going to be the best way to read these docs. But basically it's a one-person developer. I think he does accept pull requests, but it's basically one person. And he says it's heavily inspired by the official Wireguard app, but it doesn't have the official Wireguard app. I agree with him. Like, it just doesn't have very many features. It doesn't have a lot of robustness. It doesn't have those auto connecting features, and that's why they created it.
Okay.
Now, before the stream, you asked me, I installed this using F-Droid. F-Droid is an alternative package manager for Android. When I first investigated WG Tunnel, it was not available in the Play Store, the Google Play Store. It is available now. So, and I think that's as of July. So in July, they added it, the author added it to the App Store. I know developers have to go through a lot of hoops, and open source authors have to often go through even more hoops because they don't have any unlimited funds or time. And sometimes I don't know all the things that they have to jump through, but oftentimes there's money involved. Like, if you have money, it can happen faster.
Yes.
That's the state of the world, right? Like, if you have money, things happen faster. But so I don't blame them for not being there. But F-Droid, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for ordinary users because it's not as there's no reviews. So I don't like that, like in an app store, to not have any reviews, right?
Yeah,
so I don't know.
You can't name and shame like bad developers or bad apps. It's
right. There's no crowdsourcing happening. It's just like, trust me. Or like, try it. It might try the software, random software on the internet, because it might be fun for you. Oh, look at that! I can do those features. Okay, so I'm going to disconnect this. So did that make sense? Like, is there?
Thank you for that overview of WG Tunnel and why you selected it. That makes a lot more sense to me now. I might actually have to look out for that on my own. I'm using the official Wireguard iOS application, but I don't think it has any of those features that I'm probably going to eventually want, especially when I'm out and about with my phone.
I mean, the nice thing is that Wireguard is such a simple protocol. It's probably not that hard. I mean, it's difficult. It takes work, but it's not that hard for a developer who already has the knowledge of like networking and cryptography, how to create an app. So there hopefully will be more and more friendly competition among Wireguard clients. So yeah, Wireguard is really fun. It makes a lot of sense for Homelabs. It makes a lot of sense if you have a Homelab, or even if you have a Raspberry Pi that you can have as a router. You could, you should set it up, give it a try. And it makes things easier for you if you're the home administrator, right?
Yes.
Like, to be able to, just have a QR code that you scan for your loved one's phones to set it up and just be done.
Frame it, put it on the wall in case they have to lose their configuration.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you could do that. And also you can, with clients like WG Tunnel, you can make it all automagic for them. So it's just like you're always protected. Yeah, they won't even realize that they're being secure. So
that's fantastic. Really nice. Well, I think we'll end it here. I think this was an excellent overview of Wireguard from a novice perspective. I don't know. I'm still fairly new to it, and
me too.
Now I'm inspired to read the white paper. Honestly, I'm curious on the actual implementation. Well,
very good.
That's it for this session of StruggleOps. Come back next week, and we'll have a fresh new topic on our Homelab experience.
I like it. Thanks, Nicholas, and we'll talk to you later.
See you, Jesse.